was an absolute battle all 10 years. But I wanted to test myself. I wanted to see if I can do it again, if I can build a software that really rivals the industry leaders. But I wanted to do it this time only using AI. And one more thing, I wanted to do it in just 7 days. I'm talking about a fully functional, fully deployed, ready to take payments app. I have to ask the question, is this even possible? This episode is about building with AI, and we're going to get into that, but it's really about, can you build something under constraints? Can you do it under a ridiculous timeline? And maybe you can. I'm going to share with you exactly what I went through day by day for 7 days so that you can follow along. With this new wave of AI, you can pretty much build anything that you imagine. There's no shortage of ideas. You can go down rabbit holes. It could get really complex and overwhelming, but as someone who's built and sold a software business before, I'm going to share with you what you should do and what you shouldn't do if you're thinking about doing this yourself. First things first, I had to work out, what am I going to build? What is this app going to do? So I decided to build an app for creators that want to sell their courses, want to sell their products or coaching easily and not in a clunky, complex way. I decided to call it Nikki after my co-founder and wife, Nicole. So the goal is to make sure, number one, the product actually does what it says it's going to do. But number two, that it's an easy to use app that customers can get set up and running and sell their products in minutes. Our first step was to build out a plan. I knew that if I was going to pull this off, I'm going to need some help. So I called upon a friend of mine, Chris Ashby, who's the best in the game when it comes to building with AI. So Chris, I'm so happy that I got to sit down and meet with you. Is it possible to build a SaaS product in 7 days that's ready to be sold to customers?
Yeah, 100% doable. And I think this is like a huge opportunity in the application layer for AI, is building apps that have agents built into them. And you've seen the success of apps like Cursor, like the web browser Dia from the browser company. Yeah, I think it's a really good idea. It's got a lot of potential and it's got an agent built into it as well. So that's great.
So we built a plan for each day. This is where we ended up. So in day one, we're setting up and creating the foundations of the app. That means we're setting up a project with Leap, which is the software I used, and making sure that we integrate with OpenAI's APIs. Day two, this is all about user flows. We want to know what the user is going to experience when they're using the app. Day three, we're going to work on the AI sales page generator. Day four, we're building the AI pricing engine. One of the features in the app is that you can upload your product, and then the AI in the product is going to tell you how you should price your product. Day five, UI and polish. Day six, we're going to test payments, and we're going to make sure that we can onboard our customers. Day seven, the glorious day where we ship our product and demo it to make sure it all works. Sounds good in theory, but this is what actually happened. So day one didn't go as planned. I was blown away by how powerful AI was. This is like my first full day trying to build a product with AI. And what took me 3 or 4 hours of work would have taken a developer like a month to build what I built in 3 or 4 hours. I accomplished way more than I was expecting. The only thing I didn't get done was the branding at this point, but I got done pretty much all the bare bones of building an app, like being able to have logins, like authentication, being able to take payments so I can charge customers. I even had some of the basic database schemes built up and being able to create a product. So I had a lot done in just one day. So this is what I learned in day one. I learned that you need to treat AI like a highly skilled developer. And through my experience of building and growing Webinar Ninja, one of the things I learned is you need to give proper instructions. You need to know what you want so that you can tell the engineer, and in this case AI, what you want it to build. On day two, I decided to step away from the computer and focus on the user experience. I wanted to make sure that we had a seamless user flow from the moment the user signs up to they get a win out of the product, meaning they get what they signed up for. And in my case with Nikki, they want to be able to create and sell a product as fast as possible. Even like Netflix, for example, when you sign up and you create an account, the first thing they do is they ask you what kind of movies you like to watch so that they can curate some suggestions so that you can have a great experience. You can do this yourself. You have two options. You can go classic and just use paper and pen, or you can do what I did. I used my iPad and I drew out each flow. So each step I wanted to make sure is clear and mapped out. And then when I was done with each flow, I just screenshot it and I upload it to the AI building app like Leap, for example, so that the actual AI knows what you're building. It has a blueprint of the build. Let me give you a quick rundown of my tech stack, the tools that I use to build my software. I'm gonna read off my phone so I don't forget anything. First thing was Leap.new. This is like Lovable, sort of like a geeky version of Lovable, so that you can create apps using AI. The next thing is GitHub. GitHub is a code repository. This is a technical term, but basically your code has to live somewhere on the internet so that the world can access it when you're running your app. The next thing that I use is Stripe, and Stripe is a payment processor. If you can't collect payments, you don't have a business, so you gotta be able to take money from your customer's pocket to your pocket. Another tool I use is called Cursor, and it's like a secondary coding tool that would allow me to fix any bugs that I saw in Leap. I also use OpenAI's API. By the way, OpenAI is the company that creates ChatGPT, and I use basically their software or their code so that I can create my own AI features in my app. So for example, if I wanted my software to use the power of AI to create copy for a sales page, I don't need to create that AI magic. I can just borrow the magic that OpenAI already created through their API. The next tool is one of my favorite tools of all time. It's called Whisper Flow, and basically it allows me to just talk instead of type, and you can use it on your phone, you can use it on your laptop, you can use it on your computer, and it allowed me to quickly prompt the AI without having to type and make typos and all that kind of stuff. It's super simple and super easy to use. Two more tools. One is called Mux, which is a video hosting tool, and the last tool is actually ChatGPT. Now, it's funny to hear me say this, but ChatGPT is one of the best co-pilots when you're building an app because you can actually ask Chat to build the prompts for you that you want to put into your AI building tool like Leap or Lovable or whatever you're using. I was having a lot of problems in day 3 as I was developing and building the app using Leap.new. Now, Leap is a great tool and it does a lot of things well, but I was getting a lot of bugs, and these bugs were not easy to fix. It was almost like it was building on bad code. I really felt frustrated because I started to first feel like I'm not gonna hit this deadline. I'm not gonna be able to build this in 7 days. I thought to myself, do I need to start from scratch again? Do I need to start using something else to make this possible? And I had that feeling of sunk cost, like, oh man, did I just waste 2 days of my life, and am I behind by 2 days? But at breakfast, I sat down and I decided, no, I can't think this way. I gotta pull this off and build a strong app. So I decided to switch apps. I started using a software called Windsurf. It's basically like a code editor using the power of AI. So it's a lot more flexible, a lot more powerful. Yes, I still had bugs, but the bugs were fixable, and I was able to get over those hurdles. When you're building any app, you're gonna have bugs. There's no perspective, and you start feeling re-energized to get back into it. But this got me asking a big question. Do I wanna do this long term? Do I wanna build this app and sell it for the next 10 years? On day 5, I really focused on the UX and the UI. That's user experience and user interface. Now, this only works if your app actually works. You need to make sure that your product does what it promises to do. And then once you have that nailed, you can then focus on how does the customer experience the product? Are they able to use your product without any instruction manual? They're able to know what the next step is intuitively. And this is where I really focused on in day 5 to make sure that each step is super clear. On day 6, I had one goal. See if I could break this product, if I can get the product to cough up an error or some sort of bug. And if it didn't, I was successful. That entailed making sure that I can sign up, I can make sure that the customer's onboarded properly, but also that I can charge properly. Now, I need to charge the customer. That's one form of payment, but then the customer also needs to charge their customer because they're selling products and services through the app. So as you can see, it's complex, and that's why it's so important to test. Quick tip when it comes to testing. When you test your product, make sure that you test in different ways. Don't just repeat the same steps over and over. Maybe skip a step. Maybe change the order of what you do in each step because you might find the software will cough up an error when you do something a little bit different. So you're really trying to break your product, really trying to almost hack it to make sure it doesn't fail under any conditions. In 24 hours, I was planning to go live, and I wasn't 100% sure it was going to work. Day 7, the big reveal. Was I able to pull this off? I'm happy to say, after 7 days, I was able to build an app that rivals some of the biggest players in the game. That's great, and I'm happy and I'm proud. But I want to share with you how I was able to make this happen. And it really is just one word: focus. I was able to focus for hours on end, certain pockets of the day. So I spent 3 or 4 hours in deep work with no distractions. I'm talking about notifications off, earphones on. So for each day, I had one core goal, and I wanted to make sure that each day didn't go by without me ticking that box. And because of that, after the 7 days were up, I had a fully functioning app that was amazing. I can't wait to show you. Welcome to Nikki. This is the app I built in 7 days. So as you can see, it's all just simple with my branding colors. So this is where you hook up the payments so that you can use Nikki payments so you can charge your customers, and a quick dashboard with the essentials, but there'll be more detailed analytics later. And here is your store. This is where you actually have like a link in bio where you can add your profile pic, your name, and your bio, of course, and then all your links, like your social links, your website. All right, let's go to the product page now. And this is where all the products are inside of Nikki AI, but let's create a new product. This is where the magic is. Nikki AI doesn't use traditional like fields and forms to create products. You use AI to prompt it. So say, for example, I want to create a digital download. I'm gonna use dictation here. Beginner piano players to play Elton John songs. This is a pair for you to ready to go. With GPT, we can ask any customers how to boost search for it. I can ask questions about how to get more traffic, how to grow my business. So the question I keep getting asked is, when can I buy Nikki? When is it for sale? And in order for me to answer that question, I gotta share with you my 3 biggest takeaways from the 7-day challenge. The first takeaway is AI is more powerful than I ever thought. I mean, this is absolute insanity what AI can do. The second takeaway is it's incredibly fun. AI is magical. It's like having a genie grant you wishes. You just type in a prompt and tell it to build you something and it builds it. So here's the thing. Building a product is exciting. It's a lot of fun. But building a business is something completely different. It's a lifestyle choice. And I lived that lifestyle for a decade. And I don't want to do that for the next 10 years again. I want to go all in on
Most people are visual learners. I am myself, you probably are watching this video. The problem is coding agents like Claude Code are not very visual tools. When you want it to explain something to you visually, or even just help you explain something to someone else, they really don't do a good job unless you do a lot of prompting and give it the right abilities. And that is what I have been working on. So I love using Excalidraw for all of my diagrams. You've seen this before if you've been on my channel or in the Dynamist community. I build dozens of these every single month. And so I've taken my entire workflow and I've packaged it up into a skill. So I can use Claude Code or any coding agent to help me build all these beautiful and practical diagrams. And so giving my coding agent the ability to argue visually. And so right now I want to share this skill with you, my entire process packaged up so you can use it right now. So I will have a link in the description to this GitHub repository that says everything for the Excalidraw diagram skill. It is pretty simple overall. So you just clone this repository and then you create a new folder in your .claude/skills or whatever it is for your coding agent, and then you just copy over everything from this. And it is going to work no matter your coding agent. So I'll show you my setup really quickly here. I have my .claude skills directory. I created a new folder called Excalidraw diagram, and then I just dumped in everything from the repo, including the skill.md. This is the primary instruction set that guides Claude Code, how to argue visually, creating the JSON files for these Excalidraw diagrams. And I know this is super meta, but I use the ScalaDraw diagram skill to create this diagram, to explain the workflow to you so you understand how it works. And I iterated a couple of times to get to this point, but this is the kind of thing that you can generate with this skill. All you have to do, I'll show you a really quick demo of this right now, is go into Claude Code and just say, hey, I want to create a diagram to explain, and then I can just like give the path to this file for example. You could also give it the path to maybe like a YouTube script. I do that all the time to help with my YouTube videos. You can have it to build a diagram based on a PDF document. Like it can be literally anything. And so you just send in this prompt, and then Claude Code or whatever coding agent is going to be smart enough to know like, okay, let me go ahead and load in the skill, and that brings in the entire workflow. So basically we're giving it a very articulate prompt, how to generate the diagram and validate it as well. And once your coding agent outputs the JSON for the ScalaDraw diagram, you can just go to excaladraw.com and load it from your local file system, or you can use the excaladraw plugin in Obsidian. Both are very valid, and excaladraw.com is entirely free, so very easy to render these diagrams once you have them. And my favorite part about this workflow is not only does it create the excaladraw diagram, but it also validates it visually. So it will render the diagram, take a screenshot, look at the PNG, and then iterate on any of the imperfections. And I just get insane results with this workflow when we have this self-validation. Because like I said earlier, coding agents are not the best at visual tasks. They need the ability to check their own work, and we can do that with excaladraw. So I'll show you an example really quick of an image that it rendered after it built the diagram. So it's looking at this directly to see if there's anything off with the visual flow, the hierarchy of information, all the things that I have prompted into the skill.md. And it uses a Python script in order to do this rendering, which that's really the only setup that we have for the skill. So I cover that in the README here. But honestly, the easiest thing is you can just ask your coding agent to help you set up the excaladraw diagram skill, because then it knows to read the README, and it'll pretty much just go through the manual steps on its own, so that by the time it's your turn to use the skill, everything is all good to go, and you can just simply ask it to build any kind of diagram like I showed in the simple demo earlier. Now, one very important thing to keep in mind, no matter how well designed this excaladraw skill is, and I have been iterating on it constantly, it is not going to be perfect. For example, this meta diagram here that explains the workflow, it took me 2 or 3 iterations to get to this point. This is the original diagram that the skill with Claude Code produced for me, which it still looks pretty good, but you can see there are a couple of imperfections here. Like I feel like the arrows look a little jank, for lack of better words. This arrow's too short. I don't quite like the colors. I feel like there's not enough information displayed here. So I have my critiques, and it's very easy though to iterate on this. Just a couple of directed updates with my help to get to the point where we have something more like this. Now, the reason that it's never perfect at first, it actually makes sense when you think about how much the large language model has to produce for this diagram. Because think about this. It has to decide every color, every shape, the entire layout, the position of everything. There's so many micro decisions going into creating just this single, rather simple diagram. And so it's always going to be imperfect, but it's easy to get to this point. That's the important thing, is getting the starting point with this skill for you to apply your own reasoning for how you want it to evolve and the exact information that you want to display. Cool, so the last thing that I want to cover with you is the workflow, at least at a high level, especially so you know how to customize it to your own liking. We'll also talk about the color palette. That's one of the most important things to make the diagrams on brand to you, or just the color scheme that you like using. So the core philosophy that I have built a lot of prompting around in the skill.md is teaching the coding agent how to argue visually. So explaining that like we don't just want to put things in a bunch of blocks, because when it generates excaladraw diagrams without this skill, it's very blocky, for lack of better words. But instead, we want to argue visually. We want the structure and labels to explain the entire concept. So even if we strip out all of the explanatory text from the diagram like this, we would still be able to understand what we are arguing visually in the diagram. And so there are 2 main questions that I have the coding agent ask itself in the workflow. First, does the visual structure mirror the concept's behavior? And then also, could someone learn something concrete from this diagram? I'm very educational focused on my YouTube channel, as you probably know. So I want these diagrams to be very complementary to exactly what I'm trying to explain in the content. And then for the workflow itself, it just starts with your idea. So this skill is assuming that you already have a good idea of what you want to create a diagram for. So you can iterate with your coding agent before you load this skill, and then have it first assess the depth of the diagram. And the reason this is important is because we have very simple diagrams like this, and then we have more complicated ones like this. Maybe this is a better example as well. And the reason we need to assess the depth is because for more complicated diagrams, we have to build them section by section. Otherwise, you'll get an error with Claude Code where it's trying to output more than 32,000 tokens. There's a limit there. So we have to build it section by section, because these diagrams, they take quite a few tokens. It's definitely worth it, but it does take a while to generate these. And so after it assesses, do I need to build it all at once or in chunks? Then it's going to map the pattern. So taking our idea and thinking about what shapes do we need, what text do we need in the diagram, putting it all together to then build the JSON file that we can render with the Obsidian excaladraw plugin or in excaladraw.com. But before it comes back to us, it goes through the validation loop. This is what I was talking about earlier, where it renders the PNG, views the image, finds any imperfections, and then it'll just make direct edits to the JSON file it already created. So it's not like it has to spend all the time to create a duplicate or anything. Usually it'll iterate like 2 to 4 times. Not that it's going to fix everything by the time control passes back to us, but it is going to be a fantastic starting point. I also have all of my design patterns laid out into the skill.md, giving it examples of visual patterns, telling it to not do boxes and boxes and boxes. These are the kinds of things that coding agents will do without guidance, because they generate excaladraw diagrams that are always way too simple and look the same every single time, when we don't have this kind of workflow. Multi-zoom architecture, again, just things for variety. We have the color system, so I can be consistent in the colors for my diagrams, and then also the evidence artifacts. So being really specific for the kinds of elements that I want to really make my diagrams educational. And these are all the things that you can tune for yourself, especially the color palette. So I'll go back to my skill here and show you that one of the files that I reference in the reference folder of the skill, this is in the GitHub repo as well, is the color palette. And so you can just ask your coding agent, like, hey, I want to use purples and yellows instead of blues or whatever, right? And it can create the hex codes and like put all this in the color palette, so that way when you are generating diagrams going forward, it's your brand and the color scheme that you want to use. And so you can edit this, you can change the different element templates that it can bring in. All of this you can tune it yourself, but also it all works out of the box if you just want to use it right away. So a very flexible skill that I have built for you. So there you go. That is the Excalidraw diagram skill. And I encourage you to clone this repo, bring in the skill, and just try it right now on a PDF, even a code base. You could do research you do with an agent or just raw text. The possibilities are endless, and it does such a good job creating a starting point, literally saving me hours and hours every single week. And so if you appreciated this video and you're looking forward to more things on skills and agentic engineering, I'd really appreciate a like and a subscribe. And with that, I will see you in the next video.
Hi, welcome to another video. So, Claude Code just got a pretty major update, and I think a lot of people are going to love this one. Anthropic has started rolling out voice mode directly inside Claude Code. Right now, it's live for about 5% of users, and they're going to be ramping it up over the coming weeks. You'll see a note on the welcome screen once you have access, and then you can just type /voice to toggle it on. Now, let me explain why this is actually a big deal and not just some gimmick. So, the way voice mode works in Claude Code is push to talk. You hold the spacebar, you talk, and then you release. That's it. The transcript then streams in at your cursor position, which is really smart, because it means you can type half a prompt, voice the messy middle part, where you're trying to explain something complex, and then keep typing. It doesn't replace what's already there. It just adds to it right where your cursor is. This is kind of great, because if you've ever tried to type out a really long and detailed prompt explaining what you want refactored, or how you want the authentication middleware rewritten, you know that it takes a while. With voice mode, you can just talk through it naturally. You describe the architecture you want, the edge cases to handle, the specific patterns to follow, and it all goes straight into your prompt. No switching apps, no copy pasting from some other tool. And think about it this way. When you're pair programming with an AI, you're basically having a conversation. You're saying things like, okay, now move this function to a separate file, or add error handling for the case where the API returns a 429. That's how people naturally think and communicate. Typing all of that out is the unnatural part. Voice input just makes the interaction feel more like an actual conversation, which is what it should be. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, and this is the part I wanted to talk about. A lot of developers, myself included, have been using tools like Whisperflow to get voice-to-text input while coding. Whisperflow is a great tool, don't get me wrong. It works system-wide on Mac and lets you dictate anywhere. But here's the thing. Whisperflow costs money. Their Pro plan is around $10 a month, and while that's not a fortune, it adds up when you're already paying for Claude Code itself, whether that's the Pro plan, the Max plan, or whatever you're on. So, the fact that Anthropic is building voice mode directly into Claude Code means you won't need to pay for a separate voice-to-text tool anymore, at least not for your coding workflow. According to Tariq, who works at Anthropic, voice mode doesn't cost extra to use, and the tokens for voice transcription don't count against your rate limits. That's super important. It means you're not burning through your usage just by talking to Claude Code. The voice transcription is essentially free on top of what you're already paying, and it's available on Pro, Max, Library.
MyFitnessPal just acquired Cal AI for what was probably a lot of money. 8 figures, certainly, maybe low 9 figures. And here's the thing, it shows that MyFitnessPal really has no clue about where software is headed. In fact, I tweeted out, could have vibe coded this in less than a day. And of course, the king of SaaS himself, Jason Lemkin, jumped in, maybe a very basic version. Yes, for sure, actually, not the 30 million in ARR though, or community. But I think that argument is missing the point. Let's take a step back and start from the beginning. If you're not familiar with Cal AI or MyFitnessPal, let me briefly tell you what they are. MyFitnessPal is an all-in-one food, nutrition, and exercise tracking app. Cal AI gives you the ability to take your phone's camera, point it at food that you're about to eat, and it will estimate the calories that you're about to eat. A much easier way to track your calories if that's what you're trying to do. So AI-powered app for easy calorie tracking, snap a photo, send a barcode, or describe your meal and get instant calorie and nutrient info. Now, here's the thing about that. Anybody can vibe code that specific functionality, and I would bet under an hour, not even a day. Now, when you're talking about building an entire backend and a community, then yes, it'll take a little bit longer. Not much, but a little bit longer. But that core functionality can be built in under an hour. Now, TechCrunch reports, after deal talks lasting almost a year, MyFitnessPal has successfully acquired its up-and-coming rival Cal AI. AI. Now, one thing that jumps out right away is acquisition negotiations lasting up to a year speak to MyFitnessPal's Corp dev team maybe being focused on the wrong thing and not seeing the writing on the wall. But it is a big win for the Cal AI team, including their founders. It says right here, they only have 7 employees, including co-founder and CEO Zach Yadagari. And by the way, nothing but absolute respect for Zach. What an incredible win for him. But for the MyFitnessPal team, I think they bought a dying product. And I don't mean Cal AI specifically, although yes, but more broadly, this kind of easily copyable app that really only relies on distribution as its core differentiator. Now, Cal AI did have $30 million in revenue, so that is fantastic, good for them. But imagine you're a consumer and you're paying Cal AI, and then all of a sudden, your AI agent assistant can have that functionality in seconds, and it costs nothing. It costs exactly what you would be paying OpenAI or Anthropic or Google anyways. And so let's talk about MyFitnessPal, because I think we're going to see this story repeat itself so many times throughout the software industry. It was founded in 2005. Then 10 years later, it was acquired in 2015 by Under Armour for $475 million. Now, Under Armour is not a tech company, so of course they acquired a tech company and probably didn't really know how to run it properly. Anytime that you have non-technical people, non-product people trying to run a software product, it never works out. Then 5 years later, proving Under Armour did not know how to run a tech company, sold MyFitnessPal to a private equity firm and took a loss on it. The transaction value, $345 million. That's a $130 million loss over 5 years. And of course, a private equity firm also does not know how to run a software company. They generally manage from spreadsheets, and you cannot build an enduring product that people know and love from behind a spreadsheet. And so then what do? Well, they buy Cal AI, an up-and-coming rival built by teenagers who actually know what they're doing, who actually know how to build distribution, know how to build a product. And Zach Yadagari and team got out at the perfect time. In fact, they probably got out a little late, but you know what? MyFitnessPal didn't realize it. And that's because the entire software industry is changing right before our eyes. It is now possible to replicate Cal AI's functionality in under a day. And you know how I know that? Because on my post where I said, could have vibe coded this in less than a day, the founder, the CEO, Zach Yadagari himself said true and laughed. So he gets it. But you know what? He already sold it. What does he care? Now, I mentioned that this can be built in under an hour, and I was so sure of myself that I actually did it. So here at 11:18 a.m., I said, I want to track my calories by taking a picture of my food, build all of that functionality for me. I didn't even want to expand on the prompt all that much. So on it, delegating the cursor agent CLI. And by the way, this is all within OpenClaw. So now my personal agent that knows all the other things about me, that has all of my other workflows, now has this simple workflow. And again, built it in, let's see, 11:18, and it finished at 11:35. So that is under 20 minutes. Done. Here's what I built. Send a food photo. Gemini Vision identifies every item and estimates portions, returns calories, protein, carbs, fat, and fiber per item plus totals. Everything stored in encrypted SQLite with daily targets tracking. And let me just show it to you. So I'm going to paste in a picture of an In-N-Out burger. I'm going to just say In-N-Out burger, and I'm going to hit send. And let's see what happens. Now, I actually found the nutrition info on the In-N-Out website, so let's see how accurate it really is. All right, so there it goes. Meal logs, double cheeseburger from In-N-Out, hamburger bun, 160 calories, beef patty, American cheese, white onion, lettuce, tomato, burger sauce, total 744 calories. Now, a little bit off from the 610, but not that much, really. It's close enough. And to be honest, Cal AI doesn't really get all that much more accurate either. And by the way, I can add functionality easily. I can say, if I tell you it's an In-N-Out burger, go ahead and look up the nutrition information for me. Get it to be more accurate so it doesn't have to guess. But it sees that it's a burger, and it got the estimate of calories pretty darn accurately. So we have total calories for the day. I can obviously adjust this. I can tell it my age, my height, how much I'm looking to burn. All of this is just one prompt away. All right, now back to the acquisition. So we have MyFitnessPal acquiring Cal AI, and they are severely misunderstanding the future of software. I just built out the core functionality of Cal AI in 20 minutes, and it basically doesn't cost me anything. I'm already paying for my ChatGPT subscription. I'm already paying for the Gemini subscription. Whatever subscription you're paying for, you're already paying for it, and now you have this additional functionality. And by the way, you don't even need to build it with OpenClaw. You can go directly to ChatGPT and have it do it for you right through the main interface. Okay, so the arguments against what I'm saying. First, Jason Lemkin bringing up a strong argument. Yes, you can copy the very basic version, and honestly, I can make probably the entire app in under a day, but okay. But you cannot replicate the 30 million in ARR though, or the community. Now, I don't see a lot of community aspect to the Cal AI app. Maybe the MyFitnessPal has more community features, but definitely I can't build that out. However, the 30 million in ARR, that is completely not durable revenue. So as a consumer, I have two options. I can go to Cal AI, download a completely separate app, go back to it every day, multiple times a day, and use it, or I can just build the same exact functionality into the agent that I'm using all day, every day anyways. And I actually went through the Cal AI signup flow, and it looks like it costs $2.50 a month, which is actually a lot less than I thought it would be, but it's still something. And it really speaks to where software is headed. When my agent can have essentially any functionality that I want, why am I paying all of these external services? And so yes, Cal AI might have 30 million in ARR today, but I don't think that's going to be lasting. And especially since it was acquired by MyFitnessPal, which doesn't have a strong history of growing revenue. And so my main argument is that the ARR is temporary. When the entire software market is collapsing down into agents, that ARR is brittle at best. Agents are going to eat the entire vertical SaaS category. And yes, this is a SaaS business. You pay per month. And not only that, my agent is going to know me better than Cal AI or MyFitnessPal ever could. It's already going to know my health goals. It's already going to know my dietary restrictions. It's going to know my preferences. It's going to know my grocery list. And all of these things are going to tie together extremely easily to add that additional functionality of being able to just take a picture of my food and estimate the calories. It's so easy. And so the MyFitnessPal acquisition of Cal AI is the old playbook. Buy the competitor, absorb the users, and upsell other subscriptions. But MyFitnessPal does not understand the ground shifting under them. And I think we're going to see a lot more acquisitions like this, where a couple founders are able to vibe code what looks to be a very sophisticated piece of software. And it turns out software is just no longer the moat. And the young founders are incredibly good at distribution. I will certainly give them that. And so if you're kind of the legacy software company and you're looking at a potential competitor growing at a rapid clip and you think, hey, I could just acquire them, you're going to do it. And the founders building that app are going to be very happy to sell you their app and then move on to the next. next one. But eventually the entire software market collapses down into agents. I'm not the first one to say this. It is becoming more obvious by the day. Nothing but respect to Zach and team for building and getting acquired, for building something people actually wanted and getting acquired. And you know, maybe I'll be wrong about this. Let's come back in 18 months and see how Cal AI is doing under the MyFitnessPal management. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.
Claude Code might be the most powerful research agent on the planet, but you need to add this one tool to unlock it. Now, most people's version of Claude Code research is just telling it to use the web search tool and praying that whatever it comes back with is good enough. But we can do better. Because what if I told you, with just 5 minutes of setup, we could create workflows inside of Claude Code that are able to scrape any section of YouTube, pull their captions, push that information to a free, robust, pre-built RAG system that is able to do all the heavy lifting and analysis for us, and then take that analysis and give us deliverables like slide decks, infographics, podcasts, you name it, all while costing us virtually 0 tokens. Now, if that sounds way too good to be true, you would normally be right, but not in this case. So let me introduce you to the most underrated AI tool in the game today, NotebookLM. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to combine the powers of Claude Code and NotebookLM to replace a research stack for free that would otherwise cost you hundreds of dollars a month to build and maintain. I'm really excited to show you guys this one, so let's hop into it. So let's kick this video off with a demo so you can see how we can use Claude Code to harness all the features of NotebookLM without us ever leaving the terminal. Now, this prompt's going to have Claude Code do a number of things. First, we are going to use our custom YouTube search skill to find the latest trending videos on Claude Code skills. And don't worry, I will show you all these skills and how to get them in a second. After we find the video URLs, I want Claude Code to send those URLs over to NotebookLM using the NotebookLM skill. I then want NotebookLM to do analysis on those videos to figure out what are the top load skills, and I want to get that analysis sent to us. Furthermore, I want a deliverable. I don't just want the text analysis. I want an infographic in a handwritten blueprint style depicting that analysis on the top skills. So with one prompt, we are going to scrape YouTube. We're going to source all of our data. We're going to essentially put it into a RAG system because that's what NotebookLM is. We're going to have NotebookLM do all the analysis and the deliverables for us off-site, which means we don't pay for that in tokens, and we get all that for free. So let's see how it works. So here's what we got. Claude Code uploaded 20 YouTube sources into NotebookLM for analysis. NotebookLM then came back with the top 5 Claude Code skills that you see here, as well as emerging trends for how they're used. It then created that infographic deliverable for us, which automatically populated inside of our project folder. So here's a look at that infographic. Again, this is Nano Banana Pro under the hood. It's actually being called. And the text here and all the visuals, A, fit the style that we called for, which was like a handwritten blueprint type style. And secondly, and more importantly, all this content is based on the videos and the analysis of those videos. It isn't just making stuff up. And we can also see here inside of Claude Code the videos it grabbed, the title, the creator, the views, the duration, and the date. And all this is reflected inside of NotebookLM itself. I can see all the sources it uploaded. I can see all the analysis. I can see the blueprint guide that we asked for. And while this demo might seem like a rather simplistic application of this, I cannot stress enough the value add of combining these two tools, because this goes way beyond just automating the source process for NotebookLM. Everything we did here, we could have done manually inside of NotebookLM, right? I could have gone through YouTube manually. I could have found all the videos I want. I could have copy pasted them in. I could have gotten the analysis and I could have gotten the deliverable. The fact that we can automate that is nice, but it's more than that. It's the fact that I can bring all that analysis into my Claude Code ecosystem effortlessly. And the use cases of that workflow are pretty much infinite. And the second reason why this combination of tools is so powerful has everything to do with the straight up power of NotebookLM. If you try to recreate what NotebookLM does, which is like a scraping system into a RAG system, into an analysis system, into a deliverable system, right, with the infographics, the slide deck, all that, it would be a gigantic pain in the butt to do. As someone who has tried it, at least on the research side with things like NNN, it's not a simple process. Furthermore, it costs money. And this whole thing is free, which is in large part why I'm so excited to share it with you. And another reason you should be pumped is because how simple it is to set this whole thing up, which is what we're going to cover now. So when it comes to setting this up, you're probably thinking, hey, Chase, how do we actually connect NotebookLM to Claude Code, considering the fact that NotebookLM does not have a public API? Well, luckily for us, there's people much smarter than you or I who have already solved this problem. In this case, it is Tang Ling, and we will be standing on his shoulders today as we use the NotebookLM-Py GitHub repo to essentially act as an unofficial Python API for NotebookLM. But before we set up NotebookLM, we need to solve the first part of our pipeline, which is actually the YouTube search and the sourcing of the data we want NotebookLM to do analysis on. And for that, I have a custom YouTube search skill for Claude Code that does all of this for you. It uses a Python script that relies on the YT-DLP dependency to scrape YouTube's metadata for us. So when I ask it for, hey, Claude Code skills, it's just like us going on YouTube and searching in Claude Code skills. It grabs title, views, author, all that important stuff. And this skill you see right here inside of Claude Code teaches Claude Code how to best use this script. Now, there's 2 ways to get this skill and this script up and running. The first is rather simple. You just go inside of Claude Code and explain that you wanted to build this custom skill for you, that you want to use the YT-DLP dependency to create a custom YouTube scraper. Or if you want this entire YouTube search skill setup MD file, and you can just download it and hand it to Claude Code, you can do that too. And you can get it by heading to my free school community, which you can find a description for. Now, speaking of my school communities inside of Chase AI Plus, you can also find my Claude Code masterclass, which I just released a few days ago. So if you're someone who is kind of in the beginning of their AI journey, is trying to figure out how can I best leverage Claude Code, even if I'm not technical, but I really want to master what is definitely the most powerful AI tool in the game, well, that's the place for you. And if you're interested in that, just check the link in the pinned comment. So once you download the YouTube search skill setup file, just give it to Claude Code and tell it to go to work, or you can just manually prompt Claude Code to build it for you. Now, type back here and set up the NotebookLM connection. So I'll put a link to this down in the description as well. And the install is pretty simple. So to install this, we are just going to copy these commands, paste it inside of our terminal, which means, hey, if you're looking at Claude Code, you're wrong. You need to open a second terminal that looks like this.